Hey everybody, welcome to UGA Sports Live podcast. My name is Rodney DeBulce. I'm joined as always by Dane Young and the Hall of Famer himself, former head coach Jim Donnan. Coach Donnan is the reason everyone's tuning in, and we know that. We know our roles, we know our places, but we appreciate him making time to be with us each week as he does. He probably should be off playing tennis or golf or pickleball or something, but he stops and spends an hour with us every Tuesday at noon, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate all you folks for tuning in. And if you would do us a favor, hit subscribe. Really appreciate that. Coach, this past Saturday, Georgia had a scrimmage. We had a lot of folks who were at that scrimmage come to our message board at UGA Sports and tell us what they saw. I know they're not supposed to do that. I know you hate it, but they told us what they saw, and a lot of people weren't exactly impressed. The defense ruled the day, and it caused a lot of consternation, a lot of worry. You know, it was the offense last year that had people nervous, and I guess they were expecting some sort of magic from JT Daniels in the first scrimmage or something like that. And I went on our message board and said, look, guys, they're missing their top four wide receivers. Some of the guys were held out. Even Kirby Smart said JT's not playing with a full deck, which I really want to take that out of context, but I liked it. But you've had scrimmages inside Sanford Stadium. You were the head coach at the University of Georgia. You've been through this. You've coached for your whole life. Why do fans overreact to scrimmages? Or are the scrimmages an indication of a real issue?
Well, you pretty much answered everything I was going to say. So, seriously, when you look at what you're trying to get out of your team in the preparation, Kirby's been pretty good about articulating that on the Zoom calls that, you know, the number one thing is evaluate personnel the first couple of weeks. The younger guys, can they play a role, whether it be out there on offense or defense, or can they help you on special teams? So the evaluation process is a lot more prevalent to the coaches than looking like they're running up and down the field or stonewalling them on defense or things like that. But, you know, it's a double-edged sword. If you're moving up and down the field, then everybody, what the heck's wrong with the defense? And if you're not, then what's wrong with the offense? But we do have some concerns going into fall camp and throughout the next couple of weeks. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that without Pickens, you've got to have somebody out there that can threaten the field and make them cover you. But at the same time, we have a backup situation where we can go to our run game and our tight ends, and they know that. And rather than just going out there and running tight ends in the flat and tight end down the middle and all that, let's find out what Mitchell can do. Let's find out what McConkey can do. All these guys. In case we end up without Burton, in case we end up without Kieris, in case we end up without Blaylock. So I don't really have any consternation about that. I haven't had any dialogue with Kirby or Monken about what their plan was that day, but it's just very, very good to know that we have a very, as I've said, a very athletic football team that's going to have a lot of different ways to move the ball. And, you know, you always have the what if deal. What if JT gets hurt? What if so-and-so does this? All these different plans that got to be put in place. So I'm not ready to say be chicken little here myself. But, you know, one of the things I try to do on this show is show you or tell people what I feel like. Going into the year, I do have some concerns at receiver. I mean, there's no question that we've got to have some guys that can step up and catch the deep ball. Mitchell showed he could in the spring. Robinson has that ability in the red zone. And, of course, the guy that I'm counting on is 81, Rosemary Saint. I just think that he's got what you need to be that kind of guy. So that's a pretty long answer, but you know, I mean, it's just a very tough deal to look at your team and after 4 days of pads to think that they can go out there and look like a well-oiled machine is hard for me to understand how people just feel like you can snap your fingers. If you watch some of these pro teams, you can't even score if the other team leaves the field in some of these preseason games, 6-3 and all that. I mean, the difference for offense is you've got the ball. You got all the things that can happen. But the overriding thing for me as a former coach, as a guy that's been around football all my life, our team is very disciplined, not a lot of penalties. The ball wasn't on the ground much. We had 2 picks. Picks are going to happen. But we're not a sloppy football team. We're a disciplined team. And, you know, we're to me, except for the receiver injuries, which nobody can count on Burton being out and hope nobody could count on maybe Jackson taking a little more time. I would say we're right where we need to be.
Hey, Dane, before I bring you in, I had a second question for Coach, and it's kind of about how the scrimmages are structured. When we have a rivals camp and we do one-on-ones, we have the offense versus the defense. The offensive lineman gets to know the snap count. There's somebody standing behind the defensive lineman. He tells them whether it's on 1 or 2 or whatever. But, you know, then the defensive lineman has to wait till the offensive lineman moves to basically attempt his pass rush. But he knows it's a pass rush. He doesn't have to worry about the run. He's just trying to get to the quarterback. He's able to lay his ears back and just go. It's even in that situation where it seems like most of the advantage goes to the defensive lineman, we'll have an offensive lineman just shut his guy down. And you're like, oh, well, that's pretty badass. How much in these scrimmages do the defense know what's coming? It seemed, you know, that was the thing we got from a lot of our observers there. It felt like the defense kind of knew what was going on.
That's total bullshit. I mean, I'm not being a smart ass here. I'm just saying we got so many plays that we're trying to run. They got so many defenses that they're trying to run. When I say we, offense and defense, but we're looking at an installation pattern here. The one thing that I would agree with the fans is they do have the knowledge of the kids working against each other and knowing their strengths and weaknesses and all that, as far as and knowing what the talent level is of who you're going against. But as far as the plays, there's no way they know what's coming. You know, there might be a little bit of a advantage in formation recognition maybe, but I don't buy that, just because from my standpoint, I know how much we're putting in. I know how much the defense is putting in. And there's times where each team gets their pants pulled down because they think they might know what's coming, but there's a different wrinkle to it. So if we were to go out there and just say, hey, I want you on offense to see how you can trick up the defense, and defense, I want to see how you can throw all this stuff at the offense and make them look bad. I just don't see that happening. We're out there to try to put our football team in a position to play the season. In about 6 days, we'll be working on Clemson, but the installation process is what we're on right now. So maybe in 2 weeks after I watch them a little bit, I'll say like I did last year, I was worried about the offense. I said that. But right now, James Brown, for me, I feel good about Georgia.
If we're comparison shopping, this is from Larry Williams, our sister site over Tiger Illustrated here on Rivals. Says about Clemson's first scrimmage, sounds like the defense completely controlled the big scrimmage today, which moved from the stadium to the indoor facility because of weather. And I responded with the little Spider-Man meme of pointing at each other, and they're both Spider-Man, because it sounds just like the case at Georgia, that the defense dominated the day. What I think Coach is spot on about is you can't draw a ton of conclusions from one scrimmage now. I think the fear from fans is that maybe it feels more than that, because where Georgia has lacked compared to national champions in recent years is a consistent dynamic passing game, both down the field, but then also in not having, a ton of turnovers and having explosive plays off of that. And so I think a lot of Georgia fans are going to be concerned, saying, oh, is this deja vu all over again that we've seen for, some of the last 3 or 4 seasons? That's been a point of concern for Georgia, both with receiver health. It was 2 years ago. It was a receiver depth chart issue because some guys left early. Last season, it was 3 quarterbacks that started and 1 more if you want to count Jamie Newman, who was named He was the presumptive starter at the beginning of the season before he left. So I think that there's that concern. And I think some of that's probably legitimate in the sense that I thought this whole time, I thought the expectations are too high for JT Daniels based on what we've seen from him at Georgia, because the sample size is not that large. Can he go out and execute and be a great quarterback at Georgia? Sure. Do I think he's probably a top 5, Heisman odds guy? I don't see that.
Well, here's the thing. The scrimmage was open to the McGill people and, IMG people and all that, but nobody went indoors when they went, when they had a chance to go indoors, because you just don't have enough room for those people. But from what I heard, the offense, when they went indoors and did the situational type stuff and did what they needed to do as far as finishing the practice, had some really big plays. So
so he's holding it back.
I'll say that. So it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I'm not going to say that that's the guy that told me, is pretty, I would rely on that, but who cares? I mean, certainly the part for me is I really want the dog van and the vault. I want all these people to, have their time, and that's part of the deal. But you just got to talk about stuff. But
the fans want to dip their toe in the water, get a feel for what, a temperature gauge on this team, and I think Dane nails it. Whereas, there's that fear, that deep-seated fear that you're not going to get it right because you've come up short a couple times. So it's that.
Yeah. Well, you're right. You're right.
When there's smoke, there's fire is kind of the fear, Coach.
Yeah. Well, the fear of the unknown is worse than fear itself. So I'm just saying.
It's a better way to put it.
If we get Karras back, Burton back, and hopefully Blaylock, then I wouldn't trade our team for anybody in America.
Well, and from a fan's perspective, I think there was the gut punch of Eric Gilbert's situation too, which that seemed like a really big asset because of the talent that we all know that he has. And here's the thing with that situation. One, his health and his personal health and mental health and all that's involved in that is number one. And the rest of the football stuff does not matter in comparison to that, because he's a person, he has a family. And so whatever he's going through, and that needs to be a private matter. And look, I wrote about this in a column that we published over the weekend, that as a journalist, part of our role is to be able to spread some of that information. I have no interest in seeking more into that one because that's him and his family. If he wants to be a poster child for something and helping other people once he gets through whatever it is, great. If he wants to always keep it private, whatever, great. That can be true. And then on a much less important level in terms of just priorities, it is also true that from a football perspective, as a coach, as a program builder, as a CEO, you look at the situation with him and say that that's probably not a person I want to put a whole lot of stock into in terms of reliability to be able to contribute immediately. So I think that was the disappointment for fans of saying we thought he was going to be a star at Georgia. And I'm not saying he won't be, he still can be. But I'm saying that it seemed like the reliability factor is reduced.
Yeah, it just felt like
one point I would make out
again. Yeah.
At one point I would make out here too, and this is a Rivals show, and we're affiliated with the Rivals. But for Mike Farrell to come out and write a story that he had from a reliable source that Kirby Smart suspended the guy because he'd been playing, didn't want to play tight end, is so it just chaps me to no end, because guys can write what they want to. That's their job. But I've had 3 people call me about what's up with Kirby kicking this guy off, because they read that and it's just it's a very delicate situation that the young man's in, and the less said about it from my standpoint, the better. But we've got the right people on it with our staff, and if there's any chance for him to play, he'll be able to play, and that's all I can say about it. I mean, we're doing it, but there's no conflict with Kirby Smart. There's no, people say, well, he's, let them like you're always saying, well, people are saying this and this saying it. Roddy, that's one of your favorites, but to try to get me riled up. But it's okay for people to say stuff. I mean, it really is. And this is their team, and you know you're going to have other sites want to try to make it look worse. That's just the way it is. But I think we should get on with the program here and let you talk about a sponsor, and then let's go. But
No,
I don't know how I could say anything, and I think most people that listen to this believe pretty much what I say. If those receivers are healthy, I wouldn't trade this team for anyone in America right now.
Yeah, I agree. There's a headline of our show. Hall of Famer says he wouldn't trade this team for anybody, and I agree. News comes out like that, and the Georgia fan base, of which I deal with every day, is trained to look for the cloudy part of the silver lining, because it's just, you always wonder what it's going to be this year. And I'm like, there's a lot of everybody we talked to that went to the scrimmage said this team is the biggest team I've ever seen. The physical size of this team, the look of them, they look amazing. And there were some NFL scouts that came in and said the same thing. They're like, there are a ton of kids that are draftable this year. This guy could go in the draft. That guy could go in the draft. This is a fantastic looking football team. If you're down one or two guys, we can't focus on them all the time. We need to focus on the guys that are out there. Because, heck, look at Alabama. You lose Waddell and you win it with Devontae Smith. You've got backups who can play, and not even backups. You got stars out there. It's going to be a fun season.
The thing that I think everybody's got to get in mind, we might have to win some games 20-17. So what?
That's unacceptable, Coach. You got to win by 40.
Our kicking game is really good. I'm talking about really good. Our defensive front is Stonewall Jackson. We got really good fast linebackers. Kendrick has helped us so much. Ringo's tremendously improved. This kid, number 3, has come out there, and I just call him Kamari because I get him mixed up. There's Wilson and Lassiter. We're recruiting a guy named Kamari. So, but number 3, Kamari looks good. Kimber looks good. We got the corner situation, Spears back. We got that a lot better than what we did in the spring. So our defense is really coming on hard, and our O-line, it just has so much competition that it's going to be really good with the O-line. And then our backs, stronger than Ajax, our backs.
I love it. Fantastic loaded team. And I was going to make a transition there about getting loaded, but that might be taken out of context. I can tell you, I know that we're less than 3 weeks away from football season, but I did not realize that 2 days ago was my half birthday. I'm halfway to another rotation around the sun, and I would not have known that had your pie not sent me a note saying, hey, it's your half birthday, come in for a free ice cream. I'm like, oh, free gelato? Yeah, I'll do that. So just I tell people all the time, sign up for the Your Pie app and use it on Tuesdays. Tuesday's the same day we do the show. It's a great time to get double points. So if you order their new 14-inch pizza, or you order one of their salads or sandwiches or custom pastas or any of that stuff, you get double the points on the app that they do. And you get free stuff on your birthday. And apparently now you get free stuff on your half birthday, or maybe it's just me because I'm special. Either way, big shout out to Your Pie for sending me that note. And I really appreciate it. Also want to give a big shout out to our friends over at Athens Ford. They're doing this great thing. They're taking donations for what they call Lydia's Place Provisions of Hope. And these are for, they need shower caddies, towel sets, and stuff like that. It's basically to help students who've kind of who are moving on to college or moving into the world. They've kind of aged out of the foster care system. So, these are they're a little bit older. They can't be a foster care anymore. They're starting their college careers, or they're starting the workforce, and they need laundry baskets, shower caddies, towel sets, loofahs, shower curtains, the same type of stuff that backpacks, reusable water bottles, gift cards, hell, even handwritten notes. Basically, if you want to grab a clothes basket, put all this stuff in it, put some blankets, towels, and stuff like that, pillows, stuff that you would put in a dorm room for your kid. When you sent your kid off to college and you did that, they are taking those donations down at Athens Ford. And I think they do a lot of charity work at Athens Ford, and we really appreciate they do that. And while you're there, you can see some of those new Ford Broncos that have come in. There's a red one that was just picked up, is disgustingly beautiful. I really liked it, but They had one in the showroom, Army Green. When you get a chance, swing by Athens Ford and take them some stuff to help out people in need. So big shout out to all the great work they do.
Coach, I'm glad you mentioned Darion Kendrick because he's one of the guys that I've been hearing a lot about, just a lot of positive buzz from practice. And if we could, I would just quickly give you the 5 guys other than Kendrick that I keep hearing their names of here's guys to watch out for. Coach, I just want one sentence on each of these players, whether you've heard the same thing or what you know about them. Keely Ringo.
Keely's made tremendous improvement. He missed last year, as everybody knows, but I think he's ready to rock.
Amarius Mims.
Mims is just waiting for the opportunity. Once he gets in there, he's probably going to close the door.
Marcus Rosemary-Jackson.
Really has done extremely well all fall, stayed healthy, and is going to be a force for us.
Brock Bowers.
Well, there's no question that this guy is among the elite players that we brought in the last year's recruiting class, along with Mims. I would say he's a can't miss player.
And then close to your heart, Jack Podlesny.
The one thing you know about Pod, he can do it when the band's playing, and he really likes to, compete. And I'm just glad we got him. I mean, he's very consistent and continues to just impress me every time I see him.
Roddy, that's the 6 guys I keep hearing their names and the people that I talk to: Ringo, Mims, Rosemary-Jackson, Podlesny, Bowers, and Darion Kendrick. Are there any others that you would add based on your conversations?
Talking about Roddy or me?
I asked Roddy, but if you've got some, Coach, bring it on.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go with Coach. He hears more than I do.
I don't hear anything, but I know what
you lie.
I know what I see when I do see something, but I would say Camarda, I mean, his first kick last week was over 70 yards. I mean, he's a thunderfoot. The 2 backs that aren't focused on, everybody talks about Cook and White, but Milton and McClintock, McIntosh just really are, both healthy, should really be good. Tate Ratledge made a big move from the first of spring to right now and is in the mix there for a starting position as a 5-star redshirt freshman. So I'd say those guys right there, along with the 6 you mentioned. And then over on defense, every time I think about these 4, maybe, N'Kobe Dean, Adam Anderson, Carter, and Walker just makes my mouth water.
I'm glad you mentioned McIntosh too, because I've heard some buzz about him.
And that would have been the one of the guys I was on a radio show. I don't remember whose it was. I think it might have been Cole Kubelik or somebody. They asked about all those running backs, and I said, Kenny McIntosh may be the best running back in that room, or Kendall Milton might be the best running back in that room, or James Cook may be the best running back in that room.
Or Zamir White.
Yeah, so I'm like, you have a lot of different candidates, and you're kind of splitting hairs there. But the fact that you could pick any of them, and that could be your guy. You guys know how often I've said I want to see what James Cook can do. But this, the buzz, I've heard a lot of buzz about Kendall Milton. I've heard a lot of buzz about Kenny McIntosh. And we got to speak to 2 players today. We spoke to Justin Schaefer and Amir Speed. And I asked Amir, I'm like, okay, we had asked him a ton of questions about the secondary and about him, waiting his turn and being out there and doing what, now it's his opportunity to grab one of those defensive back spots. I said, tell us about some of those offensive weapons that you're having to face every day. Tell us about some of those wide receivers that are getting you grief. And he's like, no, Adonai Mitchell. And again, I know we're kind of down the depth chart a little bit. You've seen Justin Robinson get a lot of catches, Mitchell get a lot, maybe Arian Smith, guys like that. Maybe they're not the top 4 you run out there when Kyrus Jackson's healthy and Jermaine Burton's healthy, but these guys are getting reps day in and day out against Darion Kendrick, against Keely Ringo, against Amir Speed. It's only going to make them better. They're going up against some of the best in the nation. And but of all the guys he mentioned, it's neat to hear Amir Speed say Adonai Mitchell is one to watch. He says can't wait to see what he does. So
Yeah, he's taking advantage of this situation, but we need Burton experience. We need Rosemead. We need Jackson. Those guys are. But I would like to ask you a question, and I'm going to say I would like your answer to be within 4 pounds here. How much do you think James Cook weighs? Don't look at your staying here.
I'm not looking at this roster over here. James,
just answer here. Don't bullshit. Just answer. How much does he weigh?
220.
God Almighty!
I was going to go like 185.
Well, I know it's going to be more than what I expect because you're putting me on the spot.
Hey, seriously, if we were playing The Price is Right, both of you people would be in bad shape here. 204. I mean, I walked by.
I okay shape.
I knew you were putting me on the spot. I know this would be wrong. So
Roddy busted.
I walked by I was over there going over to the training room the other day, and I walked by him, and I said, James, I said, how much do you weigh, man? He said, 204. I said, can you handle it? He said, I can handle it. He said, I mean, he is really cut. Now, he couldn't have weighed more than 175 when he got here. I mean,
the pictures that we saw the first day, Coach, the pictures of him there were a lot of them, and he does not look like the same back. I also heard the same thing about Chris Smith. Heard he's put on some muscle mass. He was also a slightly built guy. So
that's the one thing about a strength program that, when we first instituted one at Oklahoma, we were thinking about trying to catch up with Nebraska because they had the first one. And our strength guy said, this isn't just for the big guys up front. He said, we got to build some mass on these corners where they can take on blockers and make tackles in the open field. And, that's what sometimes people get too caught up in, looking at all these big, strong guys like Ben Cleveland do all that stuff. But when you can do what what Sinclair's done over there with our program, as far as the special kids, the specialists and the offensive guys that play receiver and defensive backs and all, it's just really enlightening to see the way just when they walk in, here's the thing. When you like a lady gets a new dress, or a man, now you don't really wear suits that much, but you get a new suit, you want to stretch your stuff. When I walk into that weight room, they just got to feel like I'm getting ready to strut my stuff in a palace here. I'm in the best weight room in the country, and I got to live up to it. And there's a lot of pride in that. And it just makes me feel good to see that weight room. I mean, when I saw that first one, when I got here, I thought I was in some high school weight room, and we had to get it fixed quick. And it certainly nothing against the previous people, but I'm telling you, this weight room we got is just,
Well, it's one thing to have the facilities that they've had, but it's something to get the most out of them. What Sinclair has done with these guys, when you see kickers with a ridiculous six-pack and they're vascular through their arms, they're in great shape, and you just see the transformation that these guys, you talk to them in high school, and then you see them 2 years, 3 years later. I look at Kyrus Jackson, he's damn near unrecognizable, and hasn't lost a step, but he's put on muscle mass, ridiculously in good shape, and still has the speed that he had before. And I know we used to get, back in the day, we would arrange to get a lot of the weight room numbers from these guys, and we'd do a big deal about who benches what and who squats what. Today, that doesn't even matter as much because, they'll do a video and showing that, one of the offensive linemen squatting 600 pounds. Well, congratulations. But what Sinclair does to make these guys better football players, not just stronger. I mean, they look ridiculous. And that's, again, everybody that we spoke to that have been to practices, that have been to scrimmages or the scrimmage, says this team just looks different.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about a weight room or all-season program or whatever it might be. When you can get a collective group together, and for us, when the offense is lifting, the defense is meeting, and then they switch and the defense meets, because during the season you don't lift as much, you don't have as much time, and what you're trying to do is just maintain what you did in the off season. But there's something about looking over there and seeing Zamir White, and you're another back, and you're seeing what he's doing, and you're saying, well, hey, I want to play. I got to do this. And there's something about just the collective teamwork of knowing that everybody's working toward a common goal. And when you got a facility that lets you get your whole group in there at once, that's very, very positive for the future, because we got enough room to get everybody in there, not the whole team, but the whole offense or the defense. And Kirby has spoken several times about how much the team has worked on how much they missed during COVID as far as being together and understanding each other and working to, if you got a guy that's playing beside you, you really don't know where he comes from, what he's had to do to get here and do all that, as compared to, look, this guy grew up in a terrible background. He's really worked his ass off to get here, whatever it might be. There's nothing like knowing your fellow guy and knowing who's on your group and who's going to pull the rope together with you. And that's a little hokey from the old coach, but I think
they talked about the skull sessions when we got to talk to the players. They talked exactly about them getting into each other's heads. So it's not hokey. It's that locker room mentality that pays dividends down the road.
Well, the thing with the strength program too is that the season is such a physical toll and grind that it is the coaches and the strengths coach's job to get the team ready for that. But more importantly than anything is the injury prevention. And I think that there's been a lot of positive education, guys like having Ron Corson around, Scott Sinclair, of making sure that when injuries happen, that they can be treated, but preventing them in the first place requires a lot of core strength and a lot of ligament strength.
Very true. Hey, I know we got a bunch of questions you need to get to, but I do want to mention our friends over at Academia Brewing Company real quick. They have a neat thing coming up called the Game Central Station, where you can shop and swap and play a Smash Brothers tournament. So on October 2nd and October 3rd from 11 to 5 p.m., there's going to be retro games, new games, vintage toys, collectibles, plushies, cards, and a lot more, including the Smash Brothers tournament. So and a secret rare prize for the first place winner. So save your games and your consoles and bring them out to Academia on October 2nd and 3rd from 11 to 5. This week, they have a trivia this evening at 7 p.m. Classes start tomorrow. So if you want to have a post first day of class beer or meal, swing by Academia. On Thursday, they have live music from 6 to 9 featuring the Red Oak String Band and DeSoto. And then, of course, Saturday and Sundays are their famous beer and biscuit brunch. Beer and biscuit brunch. I'll say that now.
They may have some brisket too. You never know.
They do have that sandwich, man, that tripolata sandwich. So hit them up when you get a chance. All right, let's run through some of those questions there.
Well, real quick, Roddy, what's this box that's behind you over in?
I've been seeing Soxy box.
I thought I saw the letters back there, but I couldn't really read them.
All right, this is my Dead Soxy box. Dead Soxy is our new podcast sponsor, and they basically make premium socks, but out of bamboo. They're the yarn that they use is phenomenal. They were on Neil McCready's show. Neil does a fantastic podcast, and they've been sponsoring his show. It's a couple of Ole Miss grads, and they've invented the best damn socks I've ever seen. And I called Neil. I'm like, what's going on with these socks? And he's like, Roddy, they're fantastic. I said, look, it's just you and me talking. You're not doing an ad. He said, no, they are phenomenal. And I'm like, okay. So I reach out to these people and they send me a few and I tried them. And, I walk twice a day, 3.5 miles each time. And I burn through socks. I'm too fat. It destroys the socks. These actually hold up. Plus they're super soft and they stay in place. They have the technology that keeps them in place. And they said, look, if you want to sell socks, we'll let you sell socks. And I'm like, well, premium socks? That's stupid. But I will say their socks do come really, really well done.
This is a unboxing video if you're with us on YouTube.
Yeah, it's go by 1 o'clock. He's going to have it unboxed.
He's just savoring it, Coach. That's what it is.
But here's the thing: they have Georgia socks. There's your Clemson ass-kicking socks right there. It's like, oh, hey, I need to beat Florida. Florida ass-kicking socks. Wear those, beat Florida. The ones you wore last year to Florida? Your lucky socks? They didn't work. These will work, guaranteed. so long as Georgia scores more points.
Well, while you continue your unboxing, and thank you to our friends at Dead Soxy.
These are what I'm wearing right now.
Roddy just put his foot in front of the camera. Great.
So these.
Let's get to our questions.
They're the no-shows, but they don't slip off. And I run, and I actually do run now, not very far, but when I do, they don't mess up. The ASICs I had would always go down in my shoe and have to stop and fix them. So I'm just saying, if you buy them as a gift, they come incredibly well packaged. They will be a nice gift for you're the Georgia fan in your life. You can get your dad a pair, you can get your family a pair, and they will have new favorite socks. How about them silver britches right there? You got silver socks to go with it. Point being, they make damn good clothes, damn good socks, and they stay in place. They make them for Georgia fans, and they're a new sponsor for our show. So if you enjoy listening to the show, you enjoy hearing Coach Don and explain to us what the hell's going on, and if you need just regular athletic socks or you need dress socks, they got them for you. And if you use promo code UGASports, one word, UGASPORTS, you'll get 25% off anything on their store. So try them out.
Support the people that support us. Their link is in our comments on YouTube, and it'll be over at thedogvent.com as well. Not the Dogvent, UGAsports.com, the Dogvent. All right, let's get to our questions over from the Dog Vent. Let's start with this one because I don't know if I've ever asked you this, Coach, but DVD Dog wants to know, did Coach Donnan ever steal signs, or did he ever have signs stolen?
In my yard?
I think the signals to players.
Yeah, back in the old days, that was part of the deal. When I was in North Carolina, we played Maryland. They played Tennessee on the week before, and we went over there and scouted them. And we had a guy with an 8mm camera filming their defensive coordinator on the sideline, got all their signals, and then played them the next week, and they held up 100%. The only problem was our head coach, Bill Dooley, was the one that called plays, and he was so slow getting the plays in that we didn't take advantage of as much as we could. We had some ways to do it, but that was one way. And then when we played Auburn, Tommy Bowden had left there. He had coached with Terry, and I talked to Tommy a little bit, and he said that Brother Oliver was real big. You had somebody in the press box that, tried to read your lips when you were calling the plays. You had the binoculars on you.
Wow.
And, so we started out the game, and I kind of kept my like you see some of these guys on the NFL keep your play card up above your thing. But we had a deal where we said we're going to call a screen, but it was a fake screen. So I pulled it down, and I said, hey, let's go 929 screen right. But I said like a 929 screen right. And so anyhow, we faked the screen and threw it to Michael Greer, and there wasn't anybody between him and Columbus. He was so wide open, and I was laughing my ass off because I know they told Brother it was a screen. So we got one across on them.
This question, and I'm going to limit you to 15 seconds on this one because it's a topic that we've touched on in recent weeks too. Daddy Dog 92, how important does Coach think it is for Georgia to have the offensive line figured out earlier rather than later so they can build a cohesive unit?
It'd be great, but I don't know if you can because we got so much competition. You don't know how guys are going to play, and you're going against the best defense you're going to play against. So you could get beaten and still be a good player. I'm talking about up front. Your assignment. So I feel like our line's going to be, as we play more teams, you're going to see a lot of subbing in there throughout the first 4 or 5 games, really get a cohesive unit.
Of these 4, who gets the most snaps from scrimmage at the X position versus Clemson? Rosemy Jack-Saint, Robinson, A.D. Mitchell, or Eric Gilbert?
I would say Rosemy, Jack-Saint, and or maybe Gilbert.
That was from Dog KC. This is also from Dog KC.
I don't think that either one of them will play that much X if Burton's out there.
That's a great point. Also from Dog KC, will JT Daniels be the clear MVP of the offense by season's end, or do you see another player being that for the offense?
Oh,
It's a good one.
I know Zaxby's wants him to be.
Moving a lot of chicken fingers if he's in the Heisman race.
I mean, that really surprised me. A guy from the West Coast comes in and said Zaxby's his go-to place before he even gets his thing with him. But maybe he's fired up about him. But anyhow, I look for him to have a good year. It's going to be a lot on the supporting cast because he's not a guy that's going to do a lot on his own as far as jumping around and doing that. So I'd say that would be questionable to me.
I'm going to go with Jermaine Burton. I think it's going to be a wide receiver or a running back because I think, as the coach points out, he's relying on that supporting cast. You throw it to Jermaine Burton and he's got 7 catches and 100-yard game, then people start talking about him like everybody was talking about Waddle or Devontae Smith last year. And it might just be, like we said, James Cook or Kenny McIntosh or somebody who's just toting the rock straight out of the backfield or catching passes and making a name for themselves. So but the media loves to talk about quarterbacks. So it depends if the MVP's picked by the fan base or picked by the media.
I think it's just different when you like offensive MVPs now. Like Joe Burrow is not Joe Burrow without Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jamar Chase. Just as last year, you needed Mac Jones and Devontae Smith and Najee Harris and Jalen Waddle. I mean, they all elevate each other to where it feels like you have 5 MVPs when the offense is clicking.
But you got to if you want to score those types of points. So you're right.
And injuries
I don't
too.
see us being maybe Pickens gets back. I don't see us being a team that scores that many points up and down the field against the really good teams. And we could play against 2 or 3 of them, but we'll score. I mean, but our defense is going to be really good and our kicking game, and we'll play around that. But, we might get in some games we have to outscore people. I don't know that, I hope that Florida game was an anomaly last year. I don't know about the Alabama game, but, too much said about the past sometime. I mean, obviously you got to learn from your mistakes, but look at our schedule. I mean, look at the strength of schedule. We only play 2 teams in the top 25. So, we'll get some good stats, but just have to see.
Mallstog 96 says, as far as offensive line is concerned, what's the current perception of the group despite Erickson currently being out? And before you answer that, Coach, I just want to mention, I thought Kirby Smart gave a really smart and honest answer just about what Warren Erickson's dealing with, being able to potentially snap with either hand, playing with a cast on one hand, maybe a little guard. Just your overall thoughts on what Georgia's trying to do in the interior of the offensive line with his injury, knowing that he'll be able to play shortly. It's just maybe with the cast.
Yeah, and another thing I want to go back on that last answer that I didn't get to finish because I can't remember stuff like I used to, but our second and third team is going to be playing a lot in some of these games. So you're not going to see maybe the third and fourth quarter put up stats that you would see a normal guy in a tough game. So I think that's the overriding thing, because when I said the schedule, but as far as Erickson, if you told him to go out there and run 25 laps right now, he'd do it. This is a guy that's as much a team guy as we've ever had at Georgia. He's out there doing mental reps all the time. And he had a tough injury when you hurt your hand like that, particularly when you're a snapper. But I think it's going to be tough to snap with the other hand, but maybe he can learn to do that. I mean, the way you snap now is a lot different than it used to be. You used to hold the ball and try to spiral it back, but now you hold it up on your end and you just flip it back there. And it's a lot easier to do that like that than to get a spiral. So that's why you see some of these little league teams running a shotgun. They can do that very easily. I mean, it's a very easy snap to just point the ball down and flip it up. So he might be able to do it, but then you got to have you got to have both hands to have punch when you come out there, and when you don't have that strength in your hand. I know I hurt my wrist a couple of weeks ago, and it's not broken, but it's a different feeling there up your arm and all around. So, but as far as the people, sure, we got plenty of guys. Van Pran can play. He hasn't played in the game. Salyer has played and has played center. You look at guys like Jared Wilson, who's a tremendous young prospect. Hey, where's the best chance for him to play right now? Be if he can learn how to be a center with our injuries there compared to guard. You look at him there. So that's another good example of Matt Luke and Kirby Smart utilizing the talent on our team.
That's a name I hadn't heard in a while, was Jared Wilson.
They're trying everybody there. We saw Kirby mentioned Austin Blasky's working there. He said that Xavier Truss had worked out at guard. So that's a big old guard. Coach has mentioned Devin Willock before. Clay Webb could play one of the guard spots.
Coach has mentioned Devin Willock before. He does it every week.
I'm just saying I know a lot of people are like, well, who are the top 5? I'm like, man, this is you've got so many options, I know everybody wants to be in a hurry so they can drop them in the slots. But I'm like,
but sometimes you get overwhelmed with options and
analysis paralysis, Coach.
You try to do, be fair to everybody, but usually speaking, there's going to be a demonstrative difference between your first guy and your second guy, even though they got these stars behind them and all that stuff. Yeah. So the real deal is they're out there every day. They do one-on-one against Anderson and Smith and Carter and Walker, just like the guys are going to be playing with Breezy and
Miles Murphy.
These guys, and it's good. And so, you could play in a game and the one side's got Ben Hur over there playing against McClendon. He's the best guy in America. And they got a weak sister over on the left side, and you see the grades on Pro Football Focus. Well, that left tackle really played a heck of a game. Well, he didn't play against anybody. Well, the right guy's going against the best player on their team, or vice versa. And, our guys at Oklahoma used to get mad because we ran to the right a little bit more because our right guard and right tackle were just human dynamos, and our left guard and left tackle were good, but not as good. But they got better grades because all they were doing is scoop into that side, and our right guard and tackle used to get so mad. I said, "Hey, we know you're going to grade out good." He said, "Coach, it really pisses me off that he's snapping there on the left side and just scooping, and he's talking to me. He graded better." So that's one thing you look at.
With all of that nuance in mind, Lake Norman Dog asked, how soon should we expect Broderick Jones and Amarius Mims to start?
Well, I don't know about that. I think maybe 2 weeks from now, let's answer that. But they're both very capable of starting, just like Ratledge is. And Ratledge took the bull by the horn when they moved him inside. And that was a good move. Get your best players on the field. You got a heck of a combination there with those 4 tackles, Truss and Jones and McClendon and Mims. And then you got the floater there in Salyer that can play anyone. He's going to be one of the 5. It's just a question of who the other 4 are and where he can help our team the best.
That's proven to be such a valuable role. The offensive lineman that can fill in anywhere to make the offensive starting 5 the best it can be, despite who may be out for injury or whatever. We've seen that multiple times in the last 3 or 4 years for Georgia.
Trey Hill, his first year played guard, then he moved into center. Cade Mays played, I know people don't want to hear that, but Cade Mays played tackle, guard, and center. It's just the way that you do it now. That's what you got to do. And then you got to do it with your receivers too. The guy's got to be able to play outside. He's got to be able to play in the slot, and he's got to play the strong side. So one thing I always said is you don't want, if your guy's the second best receiver and the first guy goes down, but he can't play that other position that first guy played, then you're not doing a very good job coaching, because you're putting in another guy there at that position that knows it, but he's not as good as the backup on the other side. So you got to train them to play everywhere.
Good point.
Question from Blocker 57. What were coaches' interactions with the officials before and after games? Any good stories?
The one thing about the officials that they come in there and they got a protocol that they got to go through. That's for sure. I mean, they ask you if you're running any special plays or formations, or, do you have anybody that's injured that they want to check out? If you got a cast on or something like that, too, okay. And it's just the regular stuff. Most of the time, if you're going to complain about the officials, you got to send something in to the supervisor officials during the week. But mostly it's just general chit chat. But I did have a situation up there at Kentucky when we played them when Hal Mummy was there, and the one game a year that the commissioner would come to watch your team play, except if you're winning like we were to a certain extent, they'd come to a couple more big games. But you always knew the officials were tighter when the commissioner was around. You know you're going to get some tougher calls. But anyhow, we're walking out on the field. It's me and Mummy and the commissioner. The field is the grass is so high, and it was on purpose. They didn't mow the grass because we were faster and everything. The grass was so high. So the first thing I said to the commissioner right in front of Mummy, I said, "Hey, you think they're catching any wild animals out here in this grass?" and Mummy looked at me. I said, "Come on, Commissioner, look like we get somebody up here with all the money they make in basketball to mow this grass before the game." And of course, Mummy was going back and forth. But that's the game. They started out ahead of us 10-0, and man, Orantes Grant made a play on the goal line on their quarterback, or we'd have been down even worse. And then we came back and got after them pretty good. But I could talk about officials things. I know when I first got here, Joe Kynes, who kind of was the liaison with the officials when they came to spring practice, they would come over and do a game, you know what I'm saying? So he would say, he came into my office, he said, "Coach, I just want to make sure it's okay with you." He said, "These officials are coming down and I've got them set up to play golf down at at Reynolds Plantation. And I got this dinner for them at this place, steak place that night. And then the next day I got this gear for them when they come over here." I said, "Is that right?" I said, "I was coaching in the Southern Conference. Is that what we do when these officials come in?" He said, "Coach," he said, "Bear Bryant started that a long time ago." He said, "You better take care of their ass when they come over here." So we always did. And those guys like to come here because they knew they'd go down there and play the Reynolds Plantation and all that. And I know when Doug Marone was here, and I'm just saying this for the fans, he was talking about the way that when he was at Georgia Tech, that the officials would come in and they really wined and dined them over there at Atlanta.
Take them to the Cheetah Club?
I don't know where all they took them, but George had a pretty good line of getting some of those guys that he trained that were high school officials that got them in the ACC and made a couple of good calls for them.
Funny how that works out.
This question from Cajun Dog: if you compare the 2021 offense schematically, so Todd Monken's scheme, to another college football team, who would it look most like from the 2020 season? I like this question because a lot of people think that we didn't get to see what a full Todd Monken offense looks like last year because of just such a disrupted season. So are there comparisons to other offenses?
Everybody in college football and everybody in pro football. He's got everything that everybody else has got, and every team in college has got the same stuff. So there's no secrets there. I mean, we got everything in the history of football that we can run, just like every college team does. I mean, that's a real misnomer there. I mean, you got high school teams running all this stuff now. I mean, it's just the way. I mean, the spread is a 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 spread. The spread. So that's what we got.
All right. So from a coaching standpoint, then, is it mainly just about trying to assess the personnel on the other side and figuring out what to exploit based on that? If the scheme at least is similar in that sense from what most people are doing.
It's making first downs and running more plays. The more plays you can run, the better your offense looks, the better your scheme looks. We had the same scheme against Arkansas, but we couldn't make a first down, so we didn't run many plays and we're struggling. So it just gets back to, can you make first downs? Can you make big plays? And then you show your stuff. That's what it boils down to. That's the way it was when Tom Osborne was coaching at Nebraska. They talked about, boy, Tom really got a heck of an offense. Sure, when he's playing Kansas State, all those teams when we played Oklahoma. What's wrong with their offense? I mean,
That's a
they're
good
not.
point.
What's their scheme? So we got the scheme here. We got a brilliant tactician in Todd Monken. He's been to the dance. He's been in the NFL. He's been in NFL stadiums calling plays, but calling plays is so overrated compared to players. It is so overrated. We were very fortunate to have a guy like Jake Fromm that could take a play and get out of a bad play, or take a play and go either or. Was just very good. We didn't have many bad plays. And I think the same thing here with JT. He's very smart. So we'll probably make a lot more first downs this year because we've had a chance to practice more, the COVID and all that. So I just take last year and throw it out. I mean, just such an anomaly as far as preparation. I'd hate to think that I would ever play a season without having spring practice or having summer camp or all that. I don't know how they did it.
I think, one of the things I've learned doing this with you, Coach, because I have numerous times said, well, why didn't they get this guy the ball? Why didn't they throw the tight ends? Why didn't this guy get more snaps? Or what about this guy down the depth chart? And if there's one thing you've beat into my thick head, it's like, well, maybe they would have if they gotten more first downs. When you're running 50 plays versus 90 plays, makes a hell of a lot of difference and a hell of a lot of the perception of what the offense is doing. So,
yeah, and one thing that I think that all coaches have is a go. You have somebody up there that keeps up with the touches, and you don't want to get after the game. You don't want to look and see that Champ Bailey or Hines Ward or someone has only touched the ball 2 times. I mean, you got plays that you can specifically call that there's really no progression to it, that they're going to get the ball and let them out execute somebody, even if they're covered. You know what I mean? So I think we'll have some of that this year for Burton and, Kieris Jackson and things like that. So
the big O.
Progressions. Yeah, well, you can mention every guy, but progressions are one thing, but I think the trend in NFL down to college is less drop back, more play action, more RPOs, more movement on your quarterback, because these guys can just rush the passer so efficiently. I mean, it's a real skill. It's an art, but it's a talent. And boy, you just put yourself in a lot of pressure when you back up and throw the ball without the threat of anything else.
This has got me excited, Coach, to be in the same room with you, to be able to learn football as it's happening, as we will do with our watch-along show here on this channel. And Roddy, one thing that I've learned from Coach is that fans make the mistake of viewing individual plays in a vacuum, of saying, well, why didn't Georgia just throw the ball to Darnell Washington on this play? Where in reality, it's more of a concert of, if Georgia does this now, it could potentially open this up later. Or if the offensive line gets this kind of push now, it's going to tire this position group out. It's a larger production rather than just individual plays.
Yeah.
But I don't think fans look at it that way all the time. And when Coach is talking about touches, I think a lot of the times just throw it to Pickens every single play. And yeah, you have some players you need to do that a lot. But I'm saying that in most offenses, it really does work in cohesion together.
No, you're right. And my number one thing has always been, well, we were running the ball great in the first half. We got away from the run. Damn it, Mike Bobo, why didn't you run the ball? It's like, well, yeah, that was – well, what happened? What changed on the defense between the first and second half? I don't know. Okay, our conversation is over. Hey, Coach, we had another question that came from Twitter. I want to get you up from UG Alum 95. He's or she asks great questions each week, and this one I thought would help. Question for Coach Donnan: do you think Kirby will allow Monken to call the offense with zero interference?
No. I mean, you don't. I mean, you got to talk to the guy. If you're the head coach, I mean, I talked to our defensive coach. I mean, you don't call it interference. I mean, you're going to have to. Hey, look, we need to milk some time here, or we need to.
Right.
We're going to go for this. If it's third down, go ahead. We're going to go for it on fourth down. That's not interference. That's really the constant conversation between the head coach and the. But if he's alluding to, well, Kirby doesn't want to throw the ball, or Kirby doesn't want to do this, I mean, he brought this guy in. He gave him the keys to the car, but the car was in the garage last year. He couldn't do anything because COVID. I mean, you couldn't get it out there much. So I think that's a real misnomer about Kirby. I mean, he wants to win, and he does play conservative sometimes. That's his own deal. I mean, every coach, you can say that about him, but I think the fact that he made a change with one of his really dear friends there in Coley was a tough call, but he did it. And regardless of what the reasons were, we can go in that, but I just don't think he's going to interfere with his thought process, but he will tell him what he wants to do as far as, hey, we need to take care of the ball here. And, maybe not we don't need to really take any chances here. It's okay if we punt, our defense is under control and, things like that. That's just natural dialogue.
Okay.
That's all the questions we have time for today on this show, Roddy.
That's a very enlightening situation. And it helps because I think the best thing we do on this show is to poke holes in certain narratives that come up. And I know, Coach, it kind of drives you crazy when I say the fans are saying this, but hey, they're the ones that pay our salary.
Okay. Hey, I'm glad they do. And they probably don't like me answering like this.
No, it does, because I've seen your knowledge spread into the fan base. So
part of my deal is just to back Kirby, and I'm not going to be a true homer all the time. There's things that I could say that probably should have done different, but like I said, I feel good about our team. We got to get these receivers healthy. I mean, if you could get one thing out of this show today, people going to mass or going to church, pray for our receivers.
Hey, the entire team went over to Athens Church on Sunday and they could have worn these nice socks on their way to church.
Yeah, I like that.
But they did. They all went over there the 4 buses of football players went over to Athens Church on Sunday. So I hope they dropped a prayer or two for their fellow teammates who were a bit beat up. And we will, as a fan base, everyone needs to drop their prayers for all the players to stay safe this year, stay safe from injury, stay safe from COVID, and stay safe from NIL predators that are out there. So everyone just mind your P's and Q's. And
I will say this, 2 weeks from today is what?
August 17th.
2 weeks from today, watch this show, get your people that you know to watch this show, and I'll tell you exactly where we stand.
All right.
Yeah. We're gonna make that show premium.
Mark it down.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in this week. We will have another show next week before the big reveal in 2 weeks. But we'll have a lot to talk about next week because they got another scrimmage coming up. Georgia practices this afternoon. We've got tons of content at UGASports.com. We've had position breakdowns. We have recruiting updates, tons of 5-star recruiting updates lately. You've got to catch all that stuff. We've got analysis, columns, everything you could ever want at UGASports.com. Plus, we have a deal right now where if you use go to the front page of the site, you can get an entire year for $20.21 because 2021 is going to be a big year. So hit us up when you get a chance. Hit subscribe on all of our podcasts. We would greatly appreciate that. And tune in next Tuesday at noon for more Georgia Bulldog talk. For Jim Donnan and Dane Young, I'm Roddy DeBulsey. Thanks for tuning in.